Yeah, so I would love to hear more about your journey. I know that you started out in engineering and went on this incredible journey to really unlock and discover more of your divine nature and bring forward all of these gifts, which you are so beautifully sharing with humanity. And I'd love to just explore that path and that journey of self-discovery and up into what you're doing in the world right now.
hmm It's a big journey. I guess, yeah, I definitely did start out in a very academic sort of space. I did engineering. I've got a master's in teaching. So I spent a lot of time at university. I've done a lot of academic writing. And I think for me, I always knew that there was something more beyond that, you know. I mean, I loved the academic stuff. I love studying everything. And I think where it really helped me was that curiosity to learn and always asking questions, which is huge in science. You know, science really is the fundamentals of questioning what our earth actually is, what it's made up of, and really, analyzing that at such a detailed level. And I guess for me, where I digress from that over the years is going, well, okay, if science has discovered these principles, what about this other set of experiences that are maybe, like unexplainable or like, mysterious? And so what was really fascinating was that when I was in my teenage years, I spent a lot of time looking at various supernatural books. I was obsessed with the Charmed TV series. There were these teenage witch books. I can't remember their name that I read, like just binge read back when I was a kid. And so I think I've always had that sort of fascination with the unseen mysteries of the world. And when I was 25, that's when I really sort of went to that next level of spiritual awakening for myself. And even though I had been meditating since I was a kid, because I just had this, fascination with all this stuff. I think there was a real tipping point with a few catalysts in my life. Things really started to change for me. A few life events happened, and as a result, I really left all of that academic and corporate sort of background behind me and decided just to follow my passion, which turned out I really just wanted to teach people how to meditate. So I guess that's really what became the catalyst for then the rest of the events that unfolded to where I am today.
Wow, that's so beautiful. And I know that that is, a shortened version of the story. And I'd love to sort of unpack because I know that, at least in my experience, making that leap from perhaps like the safety net of corporate America and, that takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of trust to, follow your heart. And I'd love to just hear a little bit about like what were maybe like some of the whispers of your soul that you were getting to kind of like nudge you in that direction and to allow you to trust that process.
It's funny. There were whispers. I didn't listen to the whispers. I waited until life really, really smacked me in the face before I actually turned around and, listened to it. For me, the catalyst was going through a breakup in a relationship. So I was engaged at the time, and when we broke up, that sort of kickstarted a series of events and explorations, and actually, very quickly, very, very quickly after that initial experience, I found myself just one day channeling, and I'd never had that experience before. I think I'd met, maybe like not even met. I think I'd heard about one person that was a channeler. Like I don't think it was really in my awareness. It wasn't like I was sitting around listening to like Abraham Hicks. What I didn't even know Abraham Hicks at the time. And so it was a really, really like out of the blue, quite a new experience for me. And I think at the time I really was going through some very big energetic shifts. Although I do want to add, at that point, I had been activating my light body for quite a number of years through meditation. And so energetically, I think somewhere along the way, I had prepared myself for this experience. But when it happened, it was like lightning. I mean, it was legit overnight awakening kind of experience, the kind that people say they want, but I'm like, I don't know that you do. So, so I had one of those real sudden awakening moments where yeah, I was laying in bed, and suddenly there I was channeling, and in a very short space of time, I'm talking like 5 to 6 weeks after going through this big life event. Yeah, so next thing I know, I had all these different sacred geometry codes that I'd received. I'm getting guidance to share them. I'm getting told to go visit Mount Shasta in California, so I've booked a flight. Like, all these things are happening. It was the craziest, like, wildest 6 weeks of my life, you know? And
Wow.
yeah, within 6 weeks, I was actually facilitating my very first DNA activation ceremony using these sacred geometries that I had channeled myself without having any prior experience of channeling. Just made them up very like amateur. You know, I don't know how to do graphic design, so I just sort of like did them on Microsoft Word myself, and I put some nice backings on them and stuff, and kind of made them a bit pretty the best I could. And then I printed them out, and I invited some people to join me in this event. And I found a little studio that was it was actually the bottom floor of the building that was my parents' accounting firm at the time, and it was vacant. It had been vacant for a few months. It was just an empty lease. I said, "Can I use it?" So I just took a few cushions. I took my mom's kettle from home. Took a little iPod, you know, speaker, and I just set up this event, and I think I charged like $15. And I was so prepared to, you know, refund everyone. I was like, if it doesn't work, I'll just give them their $15 back, and that'll be it. Everyone's had a great time, you know. And so yeah, I just put on this thing, and I had about 7 or 8 people show up to my very first event. And the really cool thing was that my very first time facilitating this with these sacred geometries, we had 3 people in the room collectively witness this Arcturian starship energy come in. And I didn't mention anything about the codes. I hadn't said anything what they were about. I knew there was an Arcturian influence from the, you know, from the channelings, but yeah, when other people in the room started to feel that frequency, I was like, holy moly, I think this is legit. And that's kind of how it all started. I was just following the guidance. Next thing you know, one event led to another. And then there was a point where I had a big studio with like 13 facilitators. And then then we renovated the studio. And I mean, this is years and years of evolution. You know, this was 7 years ago now. To where I am today, where now I have I've shut down the studio. I shut it down just at the start of the pandemic, and then just took my business globally online. And turns out, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of exploration to do in this, you know, in this cosmic space that a lot of people just yeah, just unaware of. And so I guess
Mm.
a big part of my exploration and journey has been, you know, first having this awakening for myself. Obviously, that was in and of itself so huge to go through. And then figuring out, okay, how can I share this with others? How can I teach others? Where are the gaps in knowledge? Then, you know, getting into the coaching space, learning how to build a business, which again is a whole other ball game. And then eventually being successful in the business space, and then eventually getting a little bit more into the business coaching side of things. So at the moment where I am now, I do work mostly with entrepreneurs. I found that I really enjoy delivering my work to other entrepreneurs who are on this pathway of awakening. And I feel like that for me at the moment is where I'm really finding that joy and that biggest level of impact.
Mm. That is so beautiful. And I feel as though your journey so deeply speaks to this courage to trust the guidance, to follow your heart. I love your story about just putting on that event, the DNA activation, and just trusting, you know, what was showing up for you, and what a beautiful, you know, experience it sounds like. And that really, I feel like, is such a learning point, because sometimes we overthink things and say like, oh, I need to get like, you know, another certification, or I'm not ready to do this thing that I deeply desire to do. And, you know, what magic can happen when you almost start before you feel ready fully, you know? So I feel like
Mhm.
that's such a poignant example of that. And, you know, you mentioned something about gaps, and I feel like your journey really speaks to this energetic attunement of really like activating your light body and doing this energetic work to be able to like hold this the energetic space and bring forward your soul mission. And I'd love to ask you about this idea of gaps, and with your coaching practice of coaching entrepreneurs, where do you see the greatest gaps? Is it in like sales and marketing? Is it in this energetic attunement? Like, where do you see the areas where people need the greatest support in sharing their gifts?
I think from my perspective, and look, there can be gaps in any areas of business. I mean, I think there's definitely a space for, strategy work and funnels and, website and branding and all those great things. But I think for me, it really comes down to frequency, because the way that I've always done things and the way that I've always seen the most results is really through that trusting of the inner guidance. So to give you an example, after that first event where I had, I think 7, 8 people that came, one of my friends reached out to me. She was like, "Are you going to run this event again? I don't know if you are, but I'd love to come along." And at that point, I was like, "Well, I ran it once. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to do it again." And then that was kind of like that sign for me from the universe to be like, "Hey, look into this." And so that was kind of like the invitation. I've recently become a little bit more aware of like human design, and so I'm a projector, for those who are into it. And
Okay.
so I wait for the invitation. So
Yeah.
unconsciously, without knowing this back then, I got the invitation and I responded to it. And so once I had that invitation, I put out a second event. And I think it got to like a few weeks down the track, about a week before the event. And I almost canceled because I was like, I don't think anyone's coming. I don't know if I'm going to do this. And then next thing I know, I check my Facebook event. All these people have responded that they're coming, and 13 people showed up to this thing. No marketing, no advertising. I think I literally just created the event, and I think I posted it like once on my page. That was it. There was no like fancy marketing, no funnels, no nothing. I don't think I even had like a ticket collection set up on there. It was like cash in hand sort of thing. And these
I
people rocked
totally
up. They paid me their $15 when we did the event. And again, it was amazing. Like the people that came, they had this amazing experience. People, they told me they felt like they were being healed. They felt like they were connecting with, these beings. Like, yeah, it was wild, man.
That's amazing. Yeah, I've totally had similar experiences with events where it's like, okay, universe, like who's coming? Is anyone coming? And at the last minute, it's like everybody shows up and it's this beautiful, beautiful creation. So it's such a lesson in trust. And, I want to ask you a little bit about building community, because I feel like this is something that so many people are desiring, whether it's, from a personal perspective of building a practice or just feeling more connected to community. There can be this feeling in the beginning of like, are they out there? Like, is my community out there? And maybe like putting on an event and maybe like very few people show up or something like this. And really like having the trust and knowing that your community will be attracted to you over time if you continue to put out that energy. But what has your experience been like that?
It's been such a journey with building community. And I think look, I'll be honest with you. I don't think building a community is an easy thing to do. I think it takes a certain type of personality and a certain type of persistence and dedication to nurture that community and to really keep bringing people together. I guess I've been quite lucky in the sense that I have this. I've always had diehard fans, like people who just come week after week. Like I had clients who were coming 3 times a week to my studio. They never got over it. And I think so I think it's something that I have been able to cultivate, but it took a lot of time and energy to really build that. I mean, the amount of hours that I showed up in that studio every week was crazy, like I probably could have raised a child with that amount of time. So I think I think building a community takes finesse. I think it takes dedication. I think it takes a lot of commitment. But at the same time, it's that feeling of when you know that that's what you're meant to do, it also doesn't feel like work. And I think that was my experience for so much of it, that I ironically never set out to build a community. I never set out to have a healing center. I never set out to have a business. I never to this day, I've never had a business plan. Like, I actually, every once in a while, people nominate me for these, like local business awards and stuff like that. And then they always ask you for like your business plan. I never have one, so I'm never eligible to win any prizes because I just don't have it and I can't prove anything. So it's quite interesting the way that I operate, in that it is very much just focused on being present with, what is and what the community needs. And I think one of the things that really helped me earlier in the day was giving that time and energy to really show up for myself, but also for them. And one of the biggest things that really took me off the ground was after I started running these DNA activation ceremonies, I decided to start running a weekly Friday night meditation group. And Friday night meditation, my God, was the place to be on a Friday night, and for me, I mean, like, all my friends are out, like, partying and whatever. I mean, I'm talking like mid-20s, people are out doing whatever they're doing, and everybody just knew. They stopped inviting me to stuff after a while because everyone knew it's Friday night. Eesha's going to be in her Friday night meditation, and that's where I was every single week. And just by showing up consistently and consistently and consistently, I think that's how I really grew the community. Because yeah, we had the diehard fans, but then we also had, new people that would come in. Others would, once they found out what we were doing, that's it. They were in for life. And some of the people that used to come way back when are still clients of mine, still in my community, still hanging around, still, up leveling with me, which is amazing. So I think, yeah, I think a lot of people desire to have community, but I think it really takes a certain type of frequency to be able to really carry that with a level of commitment that's required. And of course, if you do, the rewards are I mean, infinite, because it's the customer loyalty, it's the progression as well. I mean, I'm such a different person now to the person I was 7 years ago when I started my business. And so the people that, those people that were in my community back then who stayed with me over that time, they've not only grown themselves, but they've watched me grow. And I've been able to lead them into, even deeper spaces, and my programs have evolved, and people have come and gone from the community, but there's been this core group that's just always been there. And to me, it's just, I mean, I don't even know if I have all the words to describe how honoring it is for me that they've chosen me as their guide. I think that's what it is for me. It's like I love showing up for them, but I also feel so honored to be able to host a community where people are so loyal, they're so kind, they're so, I mean, yeah, my clients are incredible, and I think that's really one of the big things that keeps me going day in, day out, because no matter how much work has to, I use the term work very loosely, but all the energy that goes into it, I think what I get out of that is that sense of knowing that we're all growing together and not being alone in the journey, which is huge. I think, having that tribe, and B, just, the warmth and the connection that you get when people have just been around for so long with that common cause, that common purpose of raising the vibration of the planet, which is what it's all about for me.
Mm. Yeah, that's so beautiful. And, I love your honesty in sharing that it isn't easy, because I feel like that's helpful for people to hear, and that it does require consistency. It requires dedication. And, especially in the beginning, if you have that vision on your heart, it's really trusting the vision even before the field is built, so to speak. It's like just knowing that, energetically it is in your field, and, by you showing up consistently, being dedicated, being able to hold that space, that it'll be able to crystallize into form over time. And the rewards of having community are so beautiful. Whatever form that community shows up in your life, it really truly is such a gift to be able to have that level of transparency and connection with others. And so, I wanted to talk to you and explore this idea of growth and kind of like letting go of parts of ourselves on this journey. And I think it's awesome how you're just sharing about your journey and being able to witness in each other the amount of growth and evolution that has transpired. Are, this idea of maybe like people pleasing, um, are there experiences for you that have helped let go of, this external validation or any need for, um, caring what other people think?
Oh, it's been huge. I think anyone who's a coach would go through this at some point, at some level, along the journey. I've definitely been through trial by fire with this one. Because I'd say the most relevant experience to share here would be a couple of years ago. I went to Uluru, and there was a big event happening there. It was for the 2020 solstice, and I was there actually as one of the, not a participant, I was an exhibitor at the conference there that was happening over the solstice. And it was a really big sort of global event. There were some big names in the space that were directing people's energy towards this particular solstice, and there was a portal, there was a whole sort of magical thing going on. And yeah, something actually happened with me during that time where so I don't know how much you know about here with the Australian Indigenous sort of community, but there's a level of fragility. I think there's still a lot of trauma, a lot of unhealed wounding from things that have happened in Australian history. Like typical colonization sort of stuff, but I mean it's pretty bad. And also in the Australian history, it's very recent. I mean, it's like people's parents and grandparents who were taken away from their families, and all sorts of horrendous things have happened. So it's a very recent part of Australian history. And so when it comes to particular sacred sites in Australia, there is a level of I guess tenderness that kind of needs to be navigated. And so this particular event was happening at Uluru, which is like the biggest sacred site, in Australia, and which a lot of Indigenous people have a very, vested interest in. And so when I was at this event, which I was purely guided out of my own, like, my guides were like, you have to go there at this time. And like, I do a lot of earth work, not just Uluru, but like constantly. And so I had my specific reasons for being there. And I wasn't necessarily aware at the time of, whatever other politics was going on with some of these other groups. And so, yeah, as it so happened, I ended up at a ceremony, which I was invited by one of the Indigenous people. That was invited to join them in a smoking ceremony and then a particular meditation. And I posted a photograph with permission of that event on social media. And this picture got picked up on social media by some groups of people that were very unhappy that I was there on sacred land doing this thing when, in their opinion, I shouldn't have been there. And my face got turned into a meme and got blasted to these hundreds of thousands of followers. Like my profile had already gone viral the day before because I posted a video from Uluru, requesting some energetic support. I put out a meditation. It was beautiful. And then this thing happened, and I just witnessed polarity in its finest. On the one hand, I had 50,000 people watch this activation that I put out. And then I had these hundreds of thousands of people throwing this backlash at me. And so I think that was my trial by fire. I was like, oh my God, like in my heart, I really felt like I was doing what I felt to be right. I was there on the land, energetically supporting. I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. There was not a question in my heart about the integrity of the work that I was doing, and that I was sent to do by my guides at the time. And so, yeah, I mean, I really had to just take a few deep breaths and sort of, realize like I have gone viral. I've just, and not necessarily in a positive way. It was very mixed vibrations. And so, I think after going through that experience, I really, really learned to be really centered in my own guidance, even when there was all this backlash, there was all this hate, there was like horrendous things being said about me. All of my social media profiles were being bombarded by like all these hate comments, but then equally there was all the positive ones as well. So I was like, this is nuts. It was a wild experience.
Yeah.
So if anything, yeah, I've just learned to just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and I just don't think you're ever going to please everyone, no matter what you do. I mean, I was going to piss someone off whether I was there or not. I think, some people just, I don't know, don't like who I am. I don't know why. I mean, I personally don't know any of these people. They've never actually spoken to me personally or gotten to know me, but I know I have people out there who don't like what I do or who are sitting there judging me or whatever. And after I realized I was never going to please everyone, I think I just stopped trying.
Yeah, and what an initiation and what a helpful lesson, because the brighter you shine, the more that that's going to, trigger some people. And, I think it's a part of shining. I mean, I feel like we have a cellular memory, many, if not all of us, of, sharing and shining our light, and, times when it maybe hasn't been safe. And so to kind of go through that experience and to feel really rooted and grounded and safe in your own guidance, and know that you can withstand any type of, external judgment that transpires, is such a initiation, and really stepping more into who you are. And yeah, that's, I guess, one question that I have is, like, even on a really small level of that, it's like people might feel this fear of, like, sharing on social media and being vulnerable and showing up. And, like, what advice would you have, what guidance would you have for um, really taking that leap?
Do you want the soft response or do you want the kick the butt response?
Kick the butt. I'm feeling that's the
The
theme.
butt, great. I love it. I love it. This is great. The kick the butt responses, stop making it all about you. There are people out there that are waiting to hear your message. And I've been there. I've been that person that's like, oh, what are they gonna think? What are people, whatever. And then one day I just got over myself and was like, why the hell am I making this all about me? When there are people out there that need my message. And so yeah, I mean, the kick the butt message is get over yourself. It's not about you. The mission is bigger than you. And so have that bravery, have that courage, say what needs to be said. You're never going to please everyone. It's impossible. So stop trying and just speak your truth. And you know what? It is so liberating when you just get out there and say what you need to say. And then you get hated on by a few people, and then you realize that you're alive and it's fine and everything is actually okay and you survived, then you just keep speaking more of what you need to speak, because at the same time you're also attracting your people. If you just stay really like mellow, like on the fence, real vanilla sort of style, then you kind of don't really I have this analogy. It's like, if you're public speaking and you're just looking at the back of the wall, you're not really connecting with anyone. But when you make contact with the one person in that audience, the whole audience feels like you're connecting with them. And so it's the same thing on social media. It's like, if you're just trying to please everyone and you're trying to, do the generic mainstream stuff, then yeah, everybody will just go, oh yeah, that was kind of nice. But if you really speak what you're here to speak and you put yourself out there, you will polarize the field. And I think that's part of it. I think it's part of that stepping out into who you are, is recognizing that the brightest lights will also draw up that darkness, because at this time there's a lot of healing that needs to be done. And so that experience to me in Uluru was the most uncomfortable experience I ever had, but boy, did I learn how to expand my field. you know and I think, yeah, whether you're on stages talking to tens of thousands of people, or whether you've got your Facebook list of of your mum, your aunt, and a couple of friends, I think just start somewhere. Just get your voice out there, and the right people will find you. Not everyone, just the right ones. And I think that's what's important to focus on.
That is such great advice. I love that, because you're essentially magnetizing exactly who needs to hear your message. And I love how you share about it being about service. And that's such a great reminder. Anytime it's like there's a little bit of hesitancy of, should I share this? Should I post this? Is like the bringing it back to, being of service. Yeah, I love
It's
that.
always it's always about the bigger picture for me, and trust me, I'm not perfect. I have my days where I'm like, I don't want to do this. This feels really scary. Definitely been through so many moments of that in my life, but I just, for me, I just keep holding that vision of that ascended earth, 5D, when we're connected with the multidimensional beings, I mean, it's just there's a love in that I feel like it drives me every day just to keep doing what I'm doing, even when it feels hard, even when it feels difficult, even when I feel resistance, even when I don't want to, because I know that we do have the power to co-create this reality. And I think now it's more important than ever. I mean, have you seen what's happening in the world out there? It's crazy, And so I look at that and I go, okay, cool. I see what's happening. And yes, there's a beautiful overarching perfection to everything. But at the same time, if I have the capacity to jump in and, add a different vibration or create something new in that collective vibration, I think that's what really draws me forward, because I keep reminding myself that it's not about me. It's about the planet. It's about the people. It's about the mission. And so you take a deep breath and you put one foot in front of the other and you just do what you got to do. And you will be rewarded for that. Not that, that's why we do it, but I mean, in my experience, when you take those brave steps and you act step into alignment, universe gives you everything. I mean, you have it all.
And it gets more and more magical. I feel like the journey gets more and more magical as you follow your heart. It's just opening up to unexpected surprises and just all different kinds of abundance, whether it's just being able to be of service or, opening up and sharing your gifts or, so many different ways that we can really just connect more with who we are and why we're here. So I'd love to ask you about, this idea of growth and expansion in for you personally and with your business. Have there been tools or mentors or practices that have been especially profound for you?
All of the above. I think having mentors absolutely has been so pivotal in my life. I think I don't think I'd be here without my mentors, business and spiritual. So definitely that's been a huge part of where I am today. In terms of practices, I would say my go-to is my 4 foundation practices, which I now gift away for free on my website. Anyone can go get that. Those particular practices, when I was going through a lot of my awakening and transition, they were the practices that really just they opened up my energy field, as well as grounded me, as well as provided the safety for me to explore what was happening with all this multidimensional awakening and stuff. So I think that was definitely a huge part of it. And then other things that I do consistently would be activating my light body and doing inner heart meditation, which is going into my heart space and really connecting to that full multidimensionality. So I think the combination of those things, it really, I mean, that's my whole life. My whole business is based off that. I mean, even though I've had business mentors and stuff, ultimately I've built my business from a space of that connectedness. And I think that's where for me that practice, that daily practice of connecting with my heart, connecting to the consciousness, connecting to the energetic consciousness that is my business, has what's allowed me to keep moving forward, sometimes in very unconventional ways. I mean, I don't necessarily follow the same sales strategies or marketing strategies or funnels or whatever as what a lot of people teach, and yet what I do works for me because I've learned to find that inner alignment through my inner heart. And so as I go in there and I check into the frequency of my business, it's like the business guides me on what it wants me to do and what is desired to be brought forth through me. And so in that sense, I'm really just in service to the mission and to the business, and I'm the vehicle. And so yeah, I do my practices every day. It's the most non-negotiable part of my life. And from that space, everything else is created.
Mm, yeah. I'd love if you could explore this idea of attuning to the energy and consciousness of your business and kind of what that looks like for you personally. And then what are some of the things that your business maybe shares with you to adjust or bring forward, and how this kind of constant communication has helped you to really grow?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that's been the one thing that really allowed me to move in leaps and bounds. And I mean, when I had my studio back in Perth in the day, it was I mean, I opened my studio in a space at that time was like commercial. It was like car yards and office buildings and like industrial sort of stuff, nothing really like, wellnessy in the area at all. And when I opened my studio there, people were like, why are you going to that suburb? There's like all these other nice suburbs you can go to. And I was like, no, this is where I feel guided. This is where I need to be. And, every day I would go in and I would tune into the energy of my business and what it wanted. I would connect into the energy of the space, which back then was a physical space. Now it's an energetic space. So I connected into the actual space and what it needed from me. And sometimes it would tell me things like paint my walls. Sometimes it would tell me things like fix my carpet. Sometimes it would tell me to renovate something. Other times it'll tell me to rest and do nothing. And I think that's really important too, and sometimes it would tell me that the energy of the land needed clearing. I would spend 2 hours just clearing the land and not even seeing any clients, and sure enough, bit by bit, I mean, I spent 6 months clearing out, the energy of the building and then into the wider suburb, and then, kept going and going and going. Sure enough, next thing you know, all these things are opening around me. Another wellness studio pops up down the street. Then you get a Pilates studio one street over. Like all these other things just started coming, and I'm like I was the first, like I was just there when everybody else said I was crazy. I was there, and next thing, suddenly, it just opened up this space for all this like wellness. There was a float center that came in, like all these different things. And I was like, cool. Like I noticed how the energy of the suburb shifted, which was really great to witness. And then when my business transitioned from a brick and mortar to more online, it was the same concept. It was, my business is still an energy. It's an energy that I can connect with. And so I breathe into my heart. I tune into that energetic consciousness, which for me usually just appears like a white ball of energy, or sometimes there's other, nuances in that. So I connect in with that frequency, heart to heart, my heart to the heart of the business, and I listen to it. And, sometimes it tells me to do really scary and crazy things, like investing $100,000 in a mentorship with money that I didn't have, like just crazy stuff. It would tell me to go work with certain mentors, or it would tell me to create certain programs or specific retreats, or it would tell me to go and reach out to a particular person that I didn't really know. And next thing it would lead to something, And so I guess I've always just been mindful of what that connection is and what it's asking me to do, instead of getting caught up in like strategies and stuff, which I have. I mean, because I've had business coaches, sometimes I've tried on some of their strategies and, cold outreach and evergreen funnels and stuff. And to be honest, none of them really work for me, because what always worked for me was just following my intuitive guidance and making those connections in those moments that are the most fruitful. So for me, it's always, the actions in my business are always led by the business. I am just there to host whatever the business needs from me, and I show up and do it. And next thing you know, I got a global business, and then my video goes viral, and things are happening. Then I'm selling 6-figure offers, and sometimes I still pinch myself, like, how did I get here from I didn't even want to start a business to like, whoa. It's just such a cool magical journey. I love it.
I love that so much. Any practices or similar kind of sharing around, cultivating abundance?
Oh yeah, I mean, look, I've spent quite a bit of time teaching people abundance. And I think, yeah, the to be honest, I've really moved away from that space, only because I've realized that when you're truly in alignment, abundance is kind of always there. And what I discovered was there was a deeper space in that frequency. Providence, it's like this concept that when you are showing up and doing what you're meant to be doing, everything is actually provided for you. I mean, God didn't put me on this planet to have to like work for the money first to then go and do the mission. I just do the mission, and if I need a house, if I need a car, if I need some money for flights and travel and, whatever else, those things have always showed up in the perfect time. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's been through monetary means, and other times it's been like I've been gifted accommodations, or I've been gifted use of a car, or I've been gifted, whatever. So, I mean, it's just there.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Like as I hear you sharing, one of the things that it brings up for me is this experience of one of the limiting beliefs that I had to clear was around work. And it was
Mm,
around like working really hard and having work be
mm,
like this kind of masculine heart, energy, whereas like really almost to the point of burnout. And that was like a
mm,
really big belief that I needed to clear and heal in order to be able to receive abundance and in order for my work to feel like play.
mm.
So
Yeah,
I'm just curious.
it's so relatable. Oh, so relatable. I have absolutely been through that myself. Right here, I'm, sitting here talking about Providence, but I've really been through that abundance, spectrum of things and like manifestation and stuff. And the cool thing is I did realize that you can manifest anything you want. And for people who are earlier on the journey, I will say, there are very practical things that you can do. Like, for example, I have a specific golden frequency activation for abundance that that I give to all my clients, and people go and make, like, I think the record to date is like 50,000 euros or something. Like, like like people have made a lot of money from these activations. Obviously that's a non-typical example, but like I've seen some pretty crazy stuff. And so there are things you can do to elevate the frequency if you're not quite there, or if if you're wanting a process or something like that. For me personally, yeah, I think letting go of that hard work was definitely part of that journey of going, I don't have to work for abundance as well. Because, typical manifestation teaches you to use affirmations and visualizations and daily rituals and practices, but you're still having to do something in order to get something. And so the biggest belief that I then adopted was, what if I did nothing and still receive something?
Mhm.
Like, what if I didn't have that cause and effect? Like, is it okay for me to just be, and the simple essence of my being unconditionally receives? You must have done something. You must have taken an action. Like, yeah, I did. I mean, I sold a $23,000 package by having a conversation that felt vibrationally aligned for an offer that I didn't have at the time. Like I literally didn't have the offer, and I sold it because it was just in the moment. And I just said to this person, I was like, I really feel like this is where you're at in your journey, and I feel like this is what I can offer you. And I sold this thing, and it was paid in full, and it was amazing. Like, and so I think that hard work thing is something I went through in the earlier stages of my journey. And I think it really does come from ego. If we're going to call it out for what it is, the ego wants to work hard. The ego wants to be recognized. The ego needs that cause and effect. It needs to know that in order for you to have massive abundance, that you have done something to deserve it, to just somehow prove you're worthy. And people disguise that in very spiritual ways as well. So they go and work and work and work. And the way that it played out for me was that whole like savior complex, like, I'm going to save the planet, and I worked really hard to save the planet. And I was richly rewarded for saving the planet, which ultimately, you don't really save the planet, you only save yourself. And so when I really got out of that space and I was like, hang on a second, what am I really achieving here? One, do I really believe the planet needs saving? And if I do, where is that coming from? And who am I to decide that? Because the only person who's going to save anything is God. So, okay, get that out of the way. Then I was like, well, if I'm not going to save anyone, then I went through a phase of, well, I must be redundant, because if I don't have a mission, I don't have a purpose. And if I don't have a purpose, I don't have any worth. And my God, that was a journey. I think I didn't do very much in those few months. I think I just sort of like halted everything, had an almost like existential second awakening crisis, in that moment. Anyway, got through that and then realized, hang on a second, if God is the true, divine being that really is the ultimate creator, then who am I to save anything or anyone?
Mm.
God heals, God provides, God protects, God just does everything. So then I was like, what is my role in that? And then I realized, I was like, for me, and this, maybe this will evolve if you, meet me again another year down the track. But I think for where I'm at right now, I feel like I'm here to play and I'm here to co-create. And the things that light me up the most, that really feel so joyful for me and keep me in my highest vibration, that's what I'm here to do.
Mm.
And so at the moment, I'm really enjoying playing around in the space of creating these luxurious retreats for clients where, yes, it's transformational. Yes, it's, yes, we meditate and we connect with star family and we do all these multidimensional things, but I'm having so much fun doing it. I get paid to travel and I get paid to just go to these really cool locations and hang out in these doing the inner transformation. But it's so play-based, and I love that. And I think that for me has been one of the biggest sheddings of that, that I must work hard to make money, I must work hard to achieve the mission. It's like, no, what if my mission fulfills itself while I'm playing and having the biggest, grandest ball of my life? And then I realized that that's what 5D is anyway, because
Mhm.
if you are embodying that higher 5D frequency, which is, I use that framework quite a lot. I know it resonates for some and not for others. That particular frequency to me really is just unified field consciousness. So if we were already in unified field consciousness and we quantum leapt our way to that now, what would we all be doing? We'd be having a grand old time. Great. Can I have a grand old time now? Great. Yeah, cool. In whatever way that looks like, I mean,
Yes.
it could be something as simple as stopping to smell a rose, or having a play date with your children. Like, I'm no one's asking you to buy a boat and go travel the world. But hey, if that is your grand idea of joy, then so be it. There's no judgment. I think it can be small, it can be big, it can be everything in between. I think it's whatever lights you up. And for me right now, it is really planting roots here in Perth. I've recently bought a house, really exploring this amazing connection I have with a partner I met last year. So those are the things that light me up. And then I get to, from time to time, go and run these beautiful VIP days and retreats with my clients, and it feels so joyful. So in that moment, I feel like I'm in that frequency of 5D. It's not suddenly a thing that I have to work hard to get to. It's like I get to it by being where I am. And that's kind of like the catch 22.
Yes. Yes. I love that share so much. I want to back up to something that you just said, which was about like purpose. And for those listening that maybe are like really trying to figure out what that is in terms of like how their gifts contribute to, you know, maybe what lights them up, trying to figure out that unique formula for them, like what advice would you have?
I figured out my purpose by asking myself, if I had all the time and all the money in the world, what would I choose to do right now in this moment? And so when you really, really sit in your heart and you feel that resonance, that truth is going to be so different for everyone. I used to think that my idea of success was having all these international flights and going, and I still love that. Like, I would love to go on tour and do all the speaking and stuff. But I think what I was really yearning for myself this year was just to actually have some roots planted, travel involved. But when I really sat down with it, the answer that I got to that question for myself for this year was nothing. And you know what? It was the scariest thing in the world, because I'm a doer. I like to do stuff. And every time I ask myself this question, if I had all the time and all the money in the world, what would I do? And I just realized I would just sit here and do nothing. And I was like, so what is it going to take for me to do that now? And when I started transitioning into that in the last year, this time last year, I had very busy schedules. Nowadays, I have like a couple of appointments a day. I have some busy days from time to time, but my whole life has shifted into this new frequency of this nothingness, and because I'm honoring my soul's need for that, it's been very abundant. It's amazing, how lucrative it's been doing not that much, And so I've sat here and I've just, had a few meetings from time to time when it feels right, no rushing anything. Like, beautiful synchronistic connections and the perfect moments, while also having entire days to myself. I call them magic days now, magic days where I just do nothing. And people ask me, what do you do on those days? And I'm like, those days are for nothing. But inside that nothingness, actually a lot happens. Like one day on Magic Day, I ended up in Sydney that evening, got on a plane. Like, so I started off doing nothing and ended up in another city, and so it's just like, yeah, it's going with the flow. I think it's allowing that presence. I think that's what my soul was really wanting, that spaciousness to be present without having back-to-back appointments all day. So I think that's the question you need to ask yourself. If I had all the time and all the money in the world, what would I do? And I know that, if you have a job or if you've got kids, you've got responsibilities, you might not be able to just drop everything and do nothing, and that's okay. But how can you bring a piece of that in? Can you take 5 minutes to do nothing today? Can you just take a few minutes to breathe today? Is that what you need? Do you need to maybe just take a 1 hour dance class a week to find your creativity, or go buy some watercolors or something? Like, no one's asking you to flip your reality overnight unless you want to. But my way is a bit more pragmatic. It's like, how can you bring just a piece of that? Because when you just bring that one little bit in, then the other pieces start to fall into place. So for me, with my desire for nothingness, it started off as an hour a day, a couple hours a day, and before you know it, I had a whole day a week to myself, just by making these small changes. But it happened gradually. And I think that's what's so important for people to recognize, is that if you find your purpose and you realize that it's something, completely ludicrous that you can't do right this second, no one's asking you to, but can you just bring a piece of it in to nourish your soul? Because start to change and you'll start magnetizing more of that.
I love that. That is such beautiful advice. Yeah, just bringing that in more and infusing it into your reality and just letting it grow from there. Yeah, beautiful. Isha, this has been such an incredible conversation. I'm so grateful for the space and this connection and all the wisdom and, nuggets of advice that you've brought through. And I'd love for you to share with listeners just ways that you are currently of service and ways that they might be able to connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do have a couple of programs that I'm running at the moment. We've got the 5D Empire, which is an annual group program. It's a membership where we run weekly activations. I teach people how to access the inner heart space. We've got a beautiful group of people going through that right now, just really opening up to their soul connections. So that's one of the ways you can work with me. And then for those who are really ready to go to that next level, if you're wanting that real bespoke kind of luxury experience, you can find me on my website, originactivation.com. You can find me, Eesha Patel, EeshaPatel, on all the socials. I mean, you can Google me, you can Facebook me, you can Instagram me, I'm everywhere. So yeah, just reach out. I always love meeting new people. And I'm sure, if your clients are have even half the beautiful energy that you have, I'm sure they'll be amazing beings. So I would love for them to reach out to me and connect with me for sure.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Isha. We will leave all of those links in the show notes. And any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share?
I imagine you have a lot of, light workers, like very, conscious entrepreneurs in your community. And so I guess the one thing I just want to leave you guys with is that it's just that message of encouragement and recognizing that where you are is actually perfect, whether you're just starting out, whether you're on the edge of something new. Each person in the bigger tapestry of life really does have such an important role to play. And so I really encourage you, take that time, breathe in, connect to that consciousness of who you are and what you're creating, and let yourself be fearlessly guided by that. You'll be so surprised by the miracles that await you on the other side. And yeah, and if we ever connect, I mean, I'd love to hear about it. So yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your heart, for your wisdom, for your courage and compassion and wisdom. It's been amazing. Thank you so much.
It's an honor. Thank you for having me, Emily.